Moringa is a simple yet elegant looking leafy green tree with drooping branches and tiny rounded leaves. If you live in a subtropical or tropical climate zone such as Nairobi, the Kenyan coast, northern Kenya, you have probably seen this tree growing and glowing away undisturbed by weather changes. This tree is what millions across the world are calling a miracle. We traveled to Matsangoni village in Kilifi County to meet one of the pioneers of value addition of the Moringa in Kenya. CJ Papu Haroon is a household name to many organic communities in Kenya and across Africa. CJ is the third generation Kenyan, bred in Nairobi, who moved to the coast 17 years ago to build a tourist establishment only for things to change down the road. Fondly referred by the local Giriama community as part of the tribe, CJ is a man of many hearts and impact.
Everybody over here knew exactly what we were talking about when we mentioned Moringa to them. And I guess the great luck that we've had is that Moringa has become almost a poster child in the global markets. You have a plant that is being grown by the local people, some of them the poorest people in the area or the poorest people actually in the county and country. And suddenly the product that they know so well and have been growing for generations and using becomes a global sort of phenomenon.
Before CJ settled in Kilifi County, he worked as a high-level software engineer for various blue-chip companies. After being in the industry for almost 2 decades, CJ felt he needed something more concrete.
I call myself a refugee from the software industry, you might call it, and I have found something in agriculture that I find extremely satisfying. There's something truly about growing a plant. There's something about seeing something grow, a live organism, you might say. There's something really heartfelt about it. And we, and myself and partners, we moved from a technology space where everything is very technological, very artificial, you might call it, into agriculture and into growing things and watching them grow from the ground. That was a big leap mentally for us, but also it was extremely satisfying, you might say gratifying. So no, we had no idea that we would end up in agriculture, but I must say that at this point in my career, it's probably the last thing I'm going to be doing before I retire, hopefully. It would be the perfect way to end my career and to see as I say, the growth, the organic growth, but not only that, to see how that organic growth then helps the local people here to go from the absolute poverty which they had to what we might call a middle-class lifestyle, at least in this area.
Venturing into Moringa was an unexpected turn in CJ's journey. As he has told us, his main focus was cashing in from the tourism industry. Diving into the Moringa, as he describes it, was by the grace of God.
Once we realized that Moringa was a viable product on a global scale, it was an easy step to encourage people in this area to plant more Moringa. And they've been using Moringa for food and for medicinal purposes for generations. In fact, in this part of the country, people say, yes, we know Moringa. They'll tell you, ask my grandmother. And that is how deep you might say the roots of Moringa go into this community. So it was really a no-brainer, as they say, for us to go from asking people to work with a plant they already know to turn it into a cash crop. But they were very focused, and what they knew and knew best was the leaf powder. They think of the green powder that you buy and you put it in spoonfuls in food and so forth. So they think of it as a food. But I think our innovation here at KILIFI Moringa was that we realized that not only can you grow the Moringa plant for its food value, its nutritional value, but also the seed contains oil.
One of the sayings around this area that the local women have coined is that Moringa is for the inside and outside. This has proven true for CJ. The miracle tree is a solution to nutrition, cosmetics, agricultural produce, farms, and so much more.
And the seed is an oil-bearing seed, and as it turns out, the oil of moringa is just as nutritional, just as valuable for the skin, for skin care and hair care, as the food is for your internal consumption. We focused in particular on production of oil, which comes from the seed. Now that itself, once again, is an interesting thing because people here had never used the seed before. In fact, they considered it to be a waste. They would throw it away. I mean, how many moringa plants can you possibly have in your garden? So normally they would simply throw the seeds away. They were a waste. And so when we came in and we said, look, we can buy these seeds from you and we'd be happy to help you to grow more, and we'll buy the seeds from you, and you can get the nutrition from the trees, from the same tree. Everybody at first thought we were kind of crazy, and were very happy to work with us because they thought, my goodness, you know, these guys are willing to pay for our trash. But lo and behold, as it turns out, the people that I had spoken to and the market that we investigated turned out to be a major market for moringa oil.
The local community here in Matsangoni could not afford to buy fertilizer or grow moringa according to the conventional farming standards. This posed a challenge to CJ. However, he came to realize that in what seems weakness lies the greatest strength.
It turns out that moringa as a food, and also in the cosmetic industry, is in much more demand if it is grown organically. What would have traditionally been seen as a weakness of the people here, that they're so poor and they can't afford all of this stuff, turned out to be our greatest strength. And I think that's a lesson right there, that we tend to look at perhaps the Western world or wherever it is, the developed areas, and we tend to try to follow everything they do and want to do whatever they do. It turns out that some of the things that we considered to be our weaknesses, for instance, the poverty that people had here, turned out to be a strength, and now we are known as an organic producer of moringa.
At the start of KME, CJ and his partners began working with individual farmers. This proved to be the best way for a substantial period until the company grew. Over the past few years, CJ and his partners started forming farming clusters per geographical area to create more impact. Each cluster would accommodate 20 to 25 individual farmers.
What's really great about that is that we can offer them all kinds of additional services at this point because they are organized into community groups. So for instance, some of our groups are doing microfinance so that they're able to, from the money that they're earning, they're able to lend each other within the groups small loans, which helps build the community ties. Some other groups are doing what we call extended production. So for example, we will provide them with raw materials from our production, that is to say our waste products. We will provide it to them, and they will then go ahead and make, for example, charcoal briquettes, or what we call charcoal substitution briquettes. They'll go and make fertilizers. They'll turn it into animal feeds. Now they have the capital, they have the means to do that. By organizing the farmers into groups, they were able to start, in effect, supporting each other in terms of the techniques, you might say, farming techniques. We were able to train a group of people who then were able to go out and advise their neighbors and their communities on the best practices that we had shown them. That would have been impossible had we tried to do it farmer by farmer, but doing it in groups allowed us to reach a lot more people than we would have.
Moringa is best known for growing in semi-arid tropical and subtropical areas. It can tolerate up to 48 degrees Celsius in hot weather and even survive the coldest of weathers.
Where in Kenya today you don't really have much of an agricultural tradition or cash crop, people should look at moringa because it has so many of these benefits.
Every single inch of moringa is valuable and can bring in a source of income from the highest to the lowest bidder. A case in point is the byproducts CJ and his teams get after processing the oil.
We get press cake, we get sludge, we get seed coat. We get a number of byproducts. There's about 5 different byproducts that come out of that process. What's extremely interesting about it is that all those byproducts can form the basis, the raw materials, for further processing into useful things. And many of those things that you can make from them go back to the farms. Seed press cake, which is once you've extracted the oil from the seed, you get a mass of material that is called press cake. And you do need to extract a bit more oil from that. It's a very simple process, but once you've extracted as much oil as you can get, you can turn that press cake into a fertilizer, or indeed an animal feed, or indeed you can turn it into a fuel briquette, for example, for charcoal substitution. But let's take the case of a fertilizer. So if you take, you get the tree, it produces all these seeds, we buy the seeds, we press the oil, we pay for the seeds obviously, and we return the byproduct, the waste product of seed processing back to the farm, which they use as a fertilizer, which allows them to grow more trees, or grows their trees to be more productive. And so the cycle continues.